Hey everybody, welcome to the morning market briefing. It's Tuesday, June 16th, 2026. Hope you're doing well out there. Lots to talk about, continuing opinions on the war. We've got a trade deal to walk through. We've got a number of mergers, but we're going to open up then with Bank of Japan raising interest rates, even with Governor Ueda out with a liver cyst infection. Oddly specific details there.
Sounds very nasty.
If I ever have one of those, just be like, Andrew's sick.
Yeah. They said they don't want to fall behind the curve, so the basic approach is to continue raising policy interest rates while adjusting the degree of monetary easing. I do wonder if, when you're thinking about this with Japan, if they are crazy like a fox right now, because they're doing the same thing Europe is doing in terms of raising rates, and arguably what the U.S. is doing directionally in terms of not cutting rates. And we've had oil prices go down 20% over the last month. Inflation's peaked. I think I can fairly firmly say that regardless of what happens with Iran, I think in the short term, oil's down and inflation's going to be down. So you think to yourself, why are we raising rates by 25 basis points? First of all, it's not really going to do much anyway to quell inflation. But secondly, the inflation beast that we had been concerned about for the last 3 months is kind of going the other direction.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to raise rates or even keep rates where they are, frankly, in my view. If the rate was good last month, it's arguably higher than it should be this month. That said, I think that there is an awareness by people, and maybe not even on these boards, but they understand that they have debt problems. And if they cannot convince the markets that they're quelling inflation, then they're going to see the long end of the curve go up.
Yep.
So what they're doing is they're raising rates. It's basically an investment. So they're raising rates on the front end in order to keep the long end of the curve down, because we talk about debt to GDP in the U.S. being 130 or 140%, and that the debt interest costs is a percentage of interest costs plus mandatory spending is basically all of the actually interest expense plus defense is the entire income that we get in the U.S. And then entitlements is everything beyond that. So right now, what they want to do is they want to try to minimize that interest expense however they can. And the way they're doing that is not cutting interest rates, which might be the thing that you might think of.
Yep.
But
Level one thinking would say, hey, let's reduce this expense by cutting this.
Yeah.
But they're concerned about down the road.
Yeah. And so if you can increase the front end by 25 basis points, but you drop the low end versus what it would be by 50 basis points, that's a net win.
Yep.
And I think that they're doing that, and I fully expect them to start cutting rates as soon as inflation starts coming down. So I wouldn't anticipate that they're actually going to follow through with this policy of continuing to raise interest rates. But that's what they're saying right now.
And notably, they felt compelled to move, and they moved as small as possible.
Yep.
So continuing on that path, we've got a big merger with large U.S. chemical players. Huntsman and Olin are coming together. They found $400 million in cost synergies, saying, hey, you get with me, we'll get with you. We can save a little money along the way. Olin a bit more upstream than Huntsman. How do you see that? Do you see this as an attractive merger of equals, or how would you kind of characterize this?
Yeah, I think it's a great deal. I think that you're going to continue to see mergers of this ilk, either vertically integrating or horizontally integrating, because what you can do with combining systems accelerates your cost synergies. Now that you have big ERP systems in each company, people aren't concerned about layoffs anymore because everyone's laying people off. So it really accelerates the ability to realize a lot of those cost synergies. And so I think that's why we've seen a big boom in M&A, and people understand that bigger is better. And this makes a lot of sense. Huntsman's trading off today because it was basically a share exchange based off of the last 30 days of trading. And over that time period, Olin went down and Huntsman went up. So now Huntsman's getting docked back to where Olin is. But I think it's a good deal overall. Huntsman, by the way, is the same as John Huntsman's company.
Former presidential candidate.
Yep. He was like I guess the poor man's Mitt Romney, but I think he has plenty of wealth.
He was way, way, way down on the stage in the debates in, 2012?
2012.
So Utah guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The EU has approved a U.S.-European Union trade deal. It took quite a while. I feel like we have been wait-and-see mode, although there's been very little traction in terms of the narrative really shifting. But we've gotten this through. Trump was threatening much higher tariffs if the EU didn't act by the 4th of July. So they got it done just before America's birthday. The EU is essentially removing import duties on industrial goods and going to prefer U.S. farm produce. So we'll take that. Shout out to the farmers. Love the farmers. And the U.S. will tariff almost everything at 15%.
Yep. I was surprised it was so strongly in favor, 440 to 151 with 50 abstentions. Imagine if you're in Europe and these unelected bureaucrats who you already don't like are just not even showing up to sign the biggest trade deal in European history. But that's what it is.
Staying on deals, curious your thoughts, Ben, where we stand with this Iran deal. I've heard quite a bit of skepticism, most of which I would say that I actually agree with. The oil market certainly responded sharply, moving lower. Stocks rallied, although I think maybe some of that softened throughout the day.
And a lot of that was chip stocks.
A lot of it was chip stocks, which really is not dependent on the Strait of Hormuz at all. Bonds didn't react in a way that suggests, hey, this is a meaningful transition. But we still don't really know what's been achieved. And to me, I guess we'll learn more between now and Friday. To me, it still just seems like a prolonging, perhaps, of a ceasefire.
Yeah, I think that is certainly the thinking in markets, and I think that's the consensus thinking overall. Why oil is down is because Hormuz is going to be open. We do know that. I mean, Hormuz is going to be open, and all those ships are going to dump their oil, and so the front month oil is going to come down because all of a sudden they're all going to arrive at once, and oil prices are going to go down. So that's good. That makes sense. But I think the longer term ramifications, to your point, are yet to be determined. It almost seems like we're just in a more fragile version of what existed back in February, where we were negotiating on the nuclear agreements. And I think there definitely have been things that changed, but nothing's changed that we didn't know before last week in terms of we're on, I guess, the second or third regime, depending on who you ask.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of destruction of missile systems. Again, to what degree, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
So overall, I think that, but I think the takeaway here is that we're essentially back to where we are in February. I think that's the consensus.
Yep.
But a little bit more fragile situation, especially around the Strait.
Yeah, it's certainly more tenuous, and you do wonder. I mean, I wonder if this is not, and I think Halperin pointed this out maybe yesterday on Two-Way, the program we reference often. I wonder if this is not even by design a stall to get through the midterms. And, we'll see. Obviously I don't want this any more prolonged than it has to be, and it continues to seem like there's not a winner. I would say from a sentiment perspective, coming out of this and saying, hey, we're back where we were in February, but we beat those guys up a little bit. Not a huge political win for Trump, but better than no, we're still actively engaged.
Yeah, and I think that, a lot of people in the markets are going to want to price in resolution quickly. But if I was running a business and making long-term decisions, and I probably wouldn't change materially my stance that existed before this deal was announced. And we haven't even had it signed yet. One of the things that does make me a little bit skeptical as well regarding the finality of this deal is that Trump is in Europe right now, and he kind of demurred about whether or not he would head over to Geneva to be at the signing.
Yep.
And yet J.D. Vance is coming all the way over from the U.S. So I don't know. If it was a really, really good deal that he was happy with,
He'd be there.
I think he'd be there.
Yeah, he'd have the red carpet out. SpaceX in the news yet again, acquiring Cursor, which is something that some people in the office have some degree of familiarity with, but essentially an AI coding tool. SpaceX merged with xAI, Musk's AI company, earlier in the year. I don't know enough to tell you if Cursor is a worthwhile acquisition. I don't understand the technology well enough. I know that I know some people who have used it and found it very easy to use and helpful and productive and all those things. What is interesting to me, they're buying it for $60 billion. Cursor was in the middle of raising $2 billion at a $50 billion valuation. So is 60 billion more than 50 billion, folks? Yeah, it is. But you're buying the whole thing. So at least on, as wacky as some of these valuations can be, especially in the AI space, it doesn't seem like a massive stretch to take down the whole thing at 60.
And they were doing that, 2 or 3 months ago?
Yeah.
Because SpaceX signed this deal, I think 2 months ago, and they said that if we don't IPO, we give you a $10 billion breakup fee, which was stunning in and of itself. So I guess that's where a lot of the IPO proceeds are going to go.
Yeah.
Into this. So I think that it's making a lot of headlines today, but it was pretty much baked in there. And I think it makes,
seems like the big news is just that, hey, it's going to close in the third quarter.
Yeah, and I think it makes, honestly, I think it's a great deal for xAI. I think they need something like this. Because they're way behind.
Yeah.
They're way behind Anthropic. They're way behind even OpenAI. And Elon definitely wants to not be behind. And so they need to accelerate their technology. And for $60 billion, when a lot of these companies are worth $1 trillion or more, seems like a pretty good investment.
Yeah. On the Musk front, I've heard so much commentary the last couple of days, people just decrying the fact that we have a trillionaire. I'm over that, guys. I'm really tired of it. I'm no part of this. I'm going to go on a little rant here, but no part of it is to indicate that we should have trillionaires or that we have to have trillionaires or that is in and of itself a true sign of success. But a few quotes that stood out to me yesterday just in commentary that I heard, and I actually jotted them down. One, I don't know if you guys have heard this before, but to whom much is given, much is required. And they said that as a criticism of Elon Musk. Another one,
like creating 4,000 millionaires.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And then another one, if America is good to you, you should be good to America. And he's not building universities. What's interesting to me, I think if you think of this specific moment, and I haven't read biographies of Elon Musk. I think he's a pretty weird dude. But I think to deny what he has accomplished and the general good of it is insane. And if the byproduct of that is him accumulating unprecedented levels of wealth, so be it. But he's not doing good. I mean, you think of the electric vehicle moment, and I think it's easy to condense it to the Tesla story. And if you dislike Elon Musk politically or for whatever reason, it's easy to put a bumper sticker on your Tesla that says, I bought this before, Elon went to Doge. Okay, that's fine. But if you don't recognize not only the role that Tesla has played in putting cars on the road, but also forcing the hand of other companies to be more innovative, you're crazy. You can hate Elon Musk all you want for the fact that you don't like X, formerly Twitter, and that people can say whatever they want. I think you should also recognize that there are people that have internet connectivity in places that seemed unfathomable a decade ago, thanks to Starlink. The same people that don't want server farms eating up farmland are the same people that hate Elon Musk, who's trying to find a way to put these things out in space where they don't bother people. He's incredible.
Which, by the way, 1 gigawatt, he wants to do 1,000 gigawatts. 1 gigawatt is the size of Central Park.
Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable. And the byproduct of this, because yes, things cost money, is that he's accumulated a lot. he's not ungenerous. I was actually looking in, I was listening to this thing, and the specific comment of he doesn't build universities cracked me up because I immediately thought of the Vanderbilt family, who notably squandered their fortune, but have this institution named after them that was largely funded by them. Elon Musk spent $370 million building STEM charter schools in rural areas, and people don't like that because it was mostly for places that were near SpaceX headquarters and Tesla headquarters, so it was really just for his employees. I mean, how dare he use a foundation to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in a single year to build facilities to educate people? I mean, the criticism is crazy. And I don't want to overstate that in the sense that, no, he is the best person because he has the most money. I'm certainly not saying that. But to simply be upset by this number and to act like it's not a political problem you have with financial success is crazy. You can't separate those things.
It's big time jealousy, and I see it a long time. A lot of it in the investment community. I feel like there are people who are just saying, "Wait, it's gonna crash," and to my mind, it's just I think there's a huge element of jealousy, and frankly, it's like, yeah, I would love to have owned SpaceX. I would have loved to have bought it at the IPO. I would have loved to have bought it yesterday. I would have been up a lot of money. And the fact is, everyone's had a chance now. I mean, if you bought at the IPO, you'd be up 50%.
Yep.
And I think that there's a lot of buy-side people especially who are, having to scapegoat someone in order to make themselves feel good. I don't know what's going to happen to SpaceX. I do think personally it's overvalued here.
Yeah.
But
you can say that without being appalled by his wealth.
Right. And like that does absolutely nothing for me. In terms of me not liking Elon because he's wealthy. And by the way, like if he ever sold a dime of SpaceX in the near term, I mean, the stock would tank. Like he it's not like he can access that wealth. Sure, he can probably borrow against it, but it's not like he can just go ahead and sell stock, because if he did, the stock wouldn't do well.
Yep.
And at every corner, he's never just taken the money and stopped innovating and stopped contributing to the American economy. He's always rolled it. I mean, he's always been like he works like crazy. And I think that...
And he pivots. I mean, we didn't even touch on this, but I mean, as a co-founder of PayPal, he's done more to democratize spending than arguably anyone. I mean, the Bitcoin bros love to talk about, ease of payments. That would have been impossible to imagine before you ever spent money online, and PayPal enabled that.
Tom and I were talking a lot about this last week, and I actually think Elon Musk has chosen probably the worst businesses in the world to ever try to make money in. Transaction services, you might take a tiny, it's hyper competitive, take a tiny cut. He managed to make that successful. Cars, they make 15 to 20% gross margin, not net margin, gross margin. Even the best ones are in that. That's a terrible, terrible business. Shooting spaceships up into space, and you've been working on this for the last 25 years, and you're still losing $10 billion a quarter?
Yep.
And yet he's managed to figure out how to make this work simply by just, there is no other option. It's got to work because there is no other option. And I think that that deserves a lot of respect. And frankly, I think the flexibility that he's shown, he did not start Tesla thinking that he was going to be into battery charging, and especially for data centers. He did not start SpaceX thinking that he was even going to have Starlink. I mean, in 2005, who would have thought that we didn't even have the iPhone yet? Why would we need, high-speed internet
in the middle of nowhere
from the space? But what he was able to do is each time he was able to flexibly adapt to where the market is. On Tesla, he adapted. He saw where the market was going and said, EVs, fine. What I need to really dive into is the robotaxi, automated driving. with SpaceX. He said, yeah, okay, now we have the Starlink, fine, but the real money is now going to be shooting data centers into space. And he decided that about a year ago.
Yep.
But he's able to move, and he's not dogmatic about, oh, this is the business, it has to be the business. He builds a tremendous asset and then identifies the highest and best use of that asset, which a lot of companies don't do. You look at Barnes & Noble, they had these great books and great stores and cafes, and they never identified the highest and best use of that asset, which is ultimately we need to get stories in people's hands. And we have this storefront that can do that effectively, and they never leaned into that. And then Amazon came and ate their lunch. So what Tesla's been able to do in SpaceX in terms of pivot is remarkable, I think.
Yeah. So if you want to call and complain about how much money Elon Musk has, we're not going to answer. All right. Also, quick shout out. Saw a listener to the podcast out in the wild last night at Corazon. Said that he missed me on the call, and I bet he's missing Tom today. Always good to run into folks that listen. So if you haven't, make sure you share this. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, like the video. If you're on the podcast, spread it around. Still growing the audience. So appreciate you guys. Y'all have a great day. Talk to you soon.